Hello dear friends and welcome to my evening coffee. For this project I am hopping along with the Whimsy Stamps video team as a guest designer. This is a hop and giveaway called Spooky Favorites. Throughout this hop all members are sharing their spooky favorites. It is a hashtag driven hop, and if you click on the hashtag in the title you will find all the other crafters and their videos. If you hop along with us and leave comments on each stop, you are in the giveaway. Please check my description box below for details on the giveaway and links to the other crafters in this hop. This video is even longer than my usual videos because of course I went a little crazy and made a big project. So get your coffee and snacks and let's dive in. I have many spooky favorites from Whimsy and could not choose, so I will use all of these favorites along with a couple of Whimsy die sets. Since I wanted to use so many spooky favorites, I decided to make a 4-page journal, and I will start this tutorial by constructing that journal with 4 pages and 3 interactive tags that can be pulled out. So, starting with the last and biggest page, I have 2 regular black panels and 2 more panels with a cutout for a tag to go in from the right. I start by gluing those 2 panels with a cutout for a tag together. Then I use my punch that punch out little notches for the discs I'm going to use for this disc-bound journal, and I punch out those notches on all of my panels for this page before I glue a full black panel on both sides of the already glued together cut out panels. And I make sure along the way that my tag fits where it's supposed to be and can be pulled out and pushed in with ease. Next I punch notches in all of my pages, and every page is made with at least 2 panels, so every page is 30. Then I glue 2 more panels together for the 3rd page, leaving the 2nd page out for now. I proceed to make the 1st page, the smallest page, the same way as I made the last, with 2 cut out panels for a tag and 1 whole panel on each side. Moving on to that 2nd page, I have 2 big black tags that I glue together, and this big tag will go into the 2nd page that will have a window, and the tag can be pulled out to show what's behind or flipped to show the other side of the tag. I glue together a few frames where that tag will go in, so the top part of those frames are open. But before I glue all the parts together, I want to decorate my window on both sides. I have 2 white frames and some old book pages with text. I use collage medium to cover those white frames with strips of the book pages and seal them, and I cut off anything hanging off the edges. To create that window, I have 2 pieces of acetate, and I will use black Stason ink to stamp on the acetate. I choose a corn stem stamp from the Sleepy Hollow stamp set and stamp a bunch of corn stems onto the acetate. For the 2nd piece of acetate, I chose a tree from the same stamp set and a tree from the Halloween Scream stamp set, and I stamped those trees in Stason solvent-based ink onto the acetate. I use double-sided tape and glue to attach the acetate panels behind my black window frames. I made a framework for the tag by gluing several identical frames that are open at the top together, and now it's time to glue that tag frame onto one of the windows.
I
I have Whimsy's vintage Halloween paper pack and I flip through it and choose a pattern for each side of the window. Next, I glue one of the book page frames onto one window frame, and on top of that book page frame, I glue a smaller frame cut from one of the papers I picked out. I rough up the edges of the book page frame with my scissors, and then I do the same with the smaller frame made from patterned paper. And last but not least, I blend archival vintage photo ink over the exposed white cardstock and lightly over both frames. Then I do the same to the other side of the window, but this time I remembered to rough up the smaller frame before I glue it on to the window, and I ink up this side of the window as well. It's finally time to glue my two-sided window together with that frame in the middle for the tag. Moving on to the big tag, I have two white panels, one for each side of the tag. I will use the Sleepy Hollow stamp set and one on one panel and the Headless Horseman stamp set for the other panel. I also have clear matte dull and black embossing powder. For the sake of time, I will stamp the second panel off camera, but I do the same on both panels. Stamp in VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink and heat emboss with Wow's Clear Matte Dull embossing powder. I also stamp the sentiment "Heads will roll" and the words "Beware and Danger" on the wooden sign and heat emboss them in black embossing powder so the words will be glossy and stand out more when I go in with inks. I intend to ink blend these panels, so I made a mask for the scarecrow and the sign so I can color them separately. And then I ink blend with Distress inks in Vintage Photo and Ground Espresso for the ground. Then I use yellow mustard seed and orange crackling campfire, followed by the red barn door and aged mahogany. And finally 3 blue inks in Salvage Patina, Priced Ribbon and Chipped Sapphire. And of course, I darken the edges with black soot to frame my panel. To add interest to my spooky panel, I splatter Distress mica stains in Burnt Amber and Harvest Moon all over my panel. For the second tag panel, I'm using Distress inks in Salvage Patina, Peacock Feathers, Price Ribbon and Chipped Sapphire to ink blend the lightest in the center and darker further out, and I use Black Soot Distress ink to darken the edges as usual. I finish this panel with splatters of mica stains in Snow Flurry and Phantom Mist. Finally, I get to pull off the masks on both panels and I color the scarecrow, the sign and the covered bridge with Distress inks in brown, yellow, orange and red. So next we're making inky background panels for my pages using Distress Oxide sprays, spray stains and mica stains to get that texture I love when the chalky oxides meet the spray stains and the shimmering mica stains. The first panel will be green and I spray with water first and then the lightest spray, working my way to the darkest spray and finishing with the shimmering mica stains. For the next panel I'm using different shades of purple but doing the same procedure, spraying from the lightest to the darkest spray and finishing off with mica shimmering sprays. My tag panels are dry now, so I glue one on each side of the black tag. Next I have the background panel for the first and smallest page and I'm using a background stamp called Dungeon Door. The background stamp won't cover the whole panel, so I start by stamping it and heat embossing it with clear matte dull embossing powder in the center of my panel. I want to cover the whole panel with those cobblestones, so I mask off what I already have there and partially ink up the stamp. Stamp a small portion and heat emboss it, and I continue doing it that way bit by bit until I have almost covered the whole panel. To connect all my bits of that background, I use a black fine liner to draw in lines connecting the first stamping with all my little bits of cobblestone. I did almost all of the stamping of images off camera. This video is long enough anyway, but I stamp all images and heat emboss them with clear matte dull embossing powder. To color in my dungeon door background, I'm using mica stains in shades of grey like Phantom Mist, Iron Gate, Empty Tomb and Decayed. I pour the mica stains in the little bowls on my palette and color in the background using the darker Iron Gate to make shadows and mixing the other grey shades to fill in the rest. For the door I'm using Fallen Acorn and Decayed mica stains. When the mica stains are dry, I bring out distress inks in Twisted Citron and Rustic Wilderness and blend them in from the edges. Next, I'm coloring these Humerus skeletons from a stamp set called Humerus. I color all images with distress inks smooshed on my surface and I pick them up with a wet brush. I'm using antique linen for all the bones. I'm using Vintage Photo and Ground Espresso for the handle on the scythe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, and I did stamp the blade on silver cardstock, cut it out and glue the silver blade on to the scythe. I'm grunging up the scroll Death is reading from with Vintage Photo and I color his armchair with Villainous Potion and Wilted Violet purple inks before I glue his weapon in his hand and the scroll in the other hand. color Dracula from the stamp set Dracula Bite Me with black soot, villainous potion and wilted violet. I used yellow, orange, purple and brown for this girl from the Cute But Psycho stamp set. Isn't she creepy? I'm also using the stamp set Poe Boy, and I give Edgar Allan Poe a purple scarf and use the greyish-green ink old paper for his skin tone. I also color lots and lots of books and the skull, candle and crow image. So, I want a frame around my Poe Boy, so I bring out a die set called Build a Graveyard and the vintage Halloween paper pack. I cut one of the tombstones from the patterned paper, and a frame to go around it from a dark grey metallic paper. From the same die set I cut another 4 frames from black cardstock and I glue them all on top of each other before I glue the grey metallic frame on top. Finally I glue the stacked frame on to the patterned paper. I put foam tape behind Poe and glue him on to his frame. Next, I want to add interest to my purple panel with the vintage wallpaper background stamp. But just as before, this stamp won't cover the whole panel, but that's okay. I want a worn look, so I ink up the stamp partially, stamp in one corner and heat emboss like before. Then I continue stamping and heat embossing parts of that stamp in random places on my panel. It's now time to glue my panels onto the black pages of my journal, starting with the green panel, then the purple panel, and finally the dungeon door panel. Next, I want to add color to the tags that can be pulled out, and for that I'm using this 1 Distress Oxide spray and 2 mica spray stains for each tag, 1 purple combo and 1 orange. I spray the purple first on the smaller tag and then I use a scrap piece of cardstock to mop up what's left of my sprays. I spray my orange combo on the larger tag and do the same as before and mop up what's left on my glass mat with a piece of cardstock. From the Build a Graveyard die set, I cut tombstones, iron fences and skulls from both grey and black cardstock, and I glue the grey pieces on top of the black, slightly offset to give the pieces a shadow. I ink up the edges of every piece with black ink and start gluing the skulls onto the tombstones. Then I bring out Distress Grit Paste Crypt and use my finger to smear on that grey speckled paste on all of my pieces. Next, I'm using the word boo from the boo die set and die cut that word out of my orange tag. Then I use the chills word die set and cut the word chills from the purple tag. I also die cut the word boo from that purple mop up piece of cardstock and the word chills from the orange mop up piece of cardstock. So I have 2 extra white tags and I glue them behind my colored tags so I can paper piece the words. Then I glue the orange word chills into its place on the purple tag. And then I glue the purple word boo into its place on the orange tag. I stamped and heat embossed a bunch of sentiments from all of the stamp sets, and now I will ink blend the different color combos in from the edges of each sentiment. Some sentiments are blue, some purple and some green, and since I heat embossed the words, they will resist the ink. Instead of using foam tape for my sentiments, I use scrap pieces of cardstock and stack 4 of them on each other for each sentiment, and I glue each scrap piece stack behind each sentiment. Finally, I get to glue all my images and sentiments onto the pages, starting with Death and his skeleton friend and cat. Then I continue with the window frame and add the blue sentiments and so on to the purple and finally the green page. I did manage to lose battery in my camera without realizing it, so I can't show you how I glued all the pieces on to the last green page. My apologies. I must admit that I really adore this purple page with my Poe Boy and all the books. Now I am a fussy cutter, so here I cut and colored a few extra stairs so I can make it longer. I also cut out extra greenery from that spooky house to use here and there on this page. I really wish you could hold out your hand and feel the dimension from the iron gates and the tombstones. And yes, WTF stands for What the Fang. Here is where I lost some footage, so sorry. At this point I am hiding the bottom of my tombstones with the extra green bushes cut from the spooky house, and I also add extras of that spooky tree from the same stamp. Here are all my pages side by side, and all that's left now is to add discs to this disc-bound journal and to add the tags in their places to be pulled out and pushed in. And now, this Whimsy Stamps Spooky Favorites Mixed Media Halloween Journal is finished. Thank you all so much for spending some spooky time with me, and remember to enter the giveaway by hopping along and commenting on my fellow YouTubers' channels in this hop. All the details for the giveaway is in my description box. Until the next time, happy Halloween!